Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excuse me, my eyes are, I just had my eyes dilated at the eye doctor, so I can't see where the cursor is to do anything here. But I think if you just start, Patrick, by talking about what you do, and we can go from there. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions.
Sure, yeah. I'll just start with informing everyone just a little bit about myself. As Marianne said, my name's Patrick. I work at Taylor's Golden Stones. It's a local jewelry store here in town, just off of Airport Way. Some of you may be familiar with us, some of you may not be. This isn't so much as a business talk as it is just information, but our business may tie in to it at some point in time, so we'll get to that. How I got into the business, I'll start there. My grandfather and father, they were both jewelers. My father was a gemologist. When I was 15, I started working at my dad's store. It's in Southern Illinois. And after I graduated from high school and then I got my associate's in art degree from a community college, I went to Southern California where I studied gemology at the Gemological Institute of America. It's a great school. There's a lot of beautiful jewelry pieces as well as gemstone specimens there. It's the world headquarters where pretty much all diamonds are graded and a lot of colored stones are sent there for identification as well. So it was great to learn there. And in 2015, I graduated with my degree in gemology. So I'm currently a graduate gemologist. And I've been doing appraisals and gemstone IDing and diamond grading pretty much ever since. I've worked both in stores in Colorado as well as, of course, here in Alaska. Today, my family store is still operated. It's run by my sister in Southern Illinois. And that's just basically my little bit of background. So I've been doing appraisals for about 7 years now, and continue to do it. I really love doing it. So it's a lot of fun. So I guess we'll start with you guys had sent in some questions, and we'll just kind of cover all those. And then if you have any questions in between, I'll stop and you guys can feel free to just raise your hand and ask them. So first off, we'll start with what is an appraisal. So of course, an appraisal is an evaluation or some kind of assessment of an item to determine its value. It's usually performed by a gemologist or an independent appraiser. They can vary slightly from appraiser to appraiser. Just a little bit of a matter of opinion. The market can change, the location, that sort of thing. And then grades are a little bit subjective as far as the quality of stones and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of leeway there, but for the most part, should be the same ballpark as long as the appraisal type is the same. Which, depending on the type of appraisal, that can change the value dramatically. So really the question is not what is an appraisal, but what type of appraisal are we really trying to seek and are we after? So there's three main types of appraisals we'll talk about today. The first one's replacement value appraisals. And this is the most common type of appraisal performed. Generally, it's for insurance purposes, and it's what a piece would cost to replace it with new parts and pieces, including the labor, if it were lost, stolen, damaged irreparably, whatever it may be. Another type of appraisal is a fair market value appraisal. What this is what's the value of an item being sold in its current condition to a willing buyer. So you want to sell it, someone wants to buy it. What is that agreed upon price? This could be to an individual person, or it could be to a store that's going to maybe resell it or do something else. The third type of appraisal is a liquidation or an estate value. And this is going to be the current market value of an item for its precious metal contents, the gemstones, diamonds, for immediate sale. You need to sell it. and the person that's buying it doesn't necessarily need to buy it, but they're willing to buy it. Does anyone have any questions so far on the different types of appraisals or anything like that?
I muted everybody, so if you're going to talk, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Oh yeah, they know. They need to. Yeah.
Marianne, you're muted.
Sorry, with my eyes, it took me longer to find that little microphone thing. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What about an appraisal for insurance purposes? Insurance, which of these would be for insurance?
That would be the first one, the replacement value. So a lot of times its formal name might even be an insurance replacement value. But yeah, that's what most insurance companies, that's what they're going to require, and it's going to be usually it's performed, when the item's purchased, but it can be performed afterwards too.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions as far as what we've already talked about, or should I continue?
So it seems like your fair market appraisal and your estate value is kind of similar. Would the estate value kind of depend on what the fair market appraisal would be at the time?
They're a little different, but you're right. There are some similarities. The main difference, I guess, would be a liquidation is just like the name implies. It's liquidating the item, so it's more kind of like its scrap value, or its most basic intrinsic value. There's always precious metal content, just like the stocks are being traded. Gold and platinum and silver are being traded, and they have a going price. So the liquidation value is what can you melt down and liquidate that jewelry into for actual cash. And then you have a similar instance with gemstones and diamonds too, where they have a kind of a baseline price where any store is going to be willing to buy them at some certain price because they have some sort of value, just like cash or something like that would. So fair market, the way that it's different, it usually is a little bit more because you have not only the precious metal and diamond content or gemstone content, but you also have the labor involved, and it's now potentially a wearable piece. So the idea with a fair market value is that willing buyer is going to keep that item as it is. They're either going to keep it as a ring and wear it, they're going to keep it as a necklace and enjoy it as that, or they're going to turn around and sell it as that piece still. So we're keeping the value as it being a piece of jewelry rather than scrap or melt value. So there might not be a huge price difference between the two, depending on the item. There can be a significant price difference, but there is a slight difference between those two. So does that answer your question? And okay, perfect.
I have a question about jewelry from the late 30s.
Sure.
That, styles that I don't think anyone would ever wear anymore.
Sure.
So what do you suggest for something like that?
I actually will talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
And then if I don't answer it properly, let's follow back through. But I think I'll cover that pretty good here, not too far. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. One of the next questions I have on here is when should you have things appraised and why? Really, the when is whenever you can. The sooner the better. The more you can get taken care of, sooner obviously is always great. But with the two types of appraisals, one being the insurance replacement appraisal, Usually that's, like I said earlier, that's performed when the item's purchased. So a lot of people have old appraisals that they get, even receipts sometimes that have information on them. Those can be used for insurance purposes if you need to turn them in to get pieces covered. They're not new enough. They can be updated, things like that. And the whole point of that type of appraisal is really if you have an item that you want to seek and get replaced if something were to happen to it. You know, you want to document the quality of everything so that you can replace it with like kind, or at least be compensated properly so that you can, you know, replace it with like monetary value. That's the main purpose of, you know, the why get an insurance appraisal. For the fair market appraisal, that's probably the biggest reason why I'm here is for, you know, a lot of times for downsizing. You have something or many things you don't know what to do with anymore. You're ready to part with them, let someone else enjoy them, try and recuperate, of course, in that process as much money as possible compared to what you had spent on it. And that's going to be really the easiest way to realize, at least, or get an idea of what's the maximum value that you're going to be able to get out of those items. Next question is, well, what if we don't know what we have? What if I don't know what it is or if it's worth anything? We've just kind of lost track of things, too many things. One thing that tailors can offer for you is a sorting service. We base it on time, and you can bring in whatever you've got. If it's going to be usually over 50 or 100 items, we ask that you call ahead to set up some sort of appointment. But we can go through that box of stuff, that jewelry bag that is tangled in disarray that you just don't know, but you hate to donate and throw away just in case there's something in there. We're happy to go through that, try and determine and separate, usually into 3 categories: fine jewelry, precious metals, diamonds, that sort of thing, costume jewelry, you know, non-precious metals, plated, that sort of thing. And then usually there's a third category of kind of in between. Sterling silver is a common, you know, placeholder for that. So at least we can get that sort of ball rolling, so to speak, and get things kind of going, and at least get you an idea of what you've got. So once you do have things sorted, or maybe you already have what you want to sell, you know what you need to get rid of, whatever that may be. What's going to be the best way to sell stuff, the easiest, you know, what's going to bring in the most money, that sort of thing. So I've got this list together, and it's an order of the most important thing being retaining the most value for your items. And then the second kind of way to break it down is, well, then what's going to be the easiest way to do that? And they definitely kind of play off each other. Of course, the more money that you're going to recuperate usually means there's going to be more work on your part involved. So definitely the best way to get the value out of your item is to find an individual that wants to enjoy it as it is. So you're trying to find that end consumer. So if you can find somebody personally that's going to enjoy that piece, who's going to wear it, who's going to, you know, whatever it may be, that's going to get you the closest to that original price that you paid for it, you know, the highest value that you're going to be able to get out of it, simply because you're going straight to the end user. There's no middleman. There's no one in between. The next best option for you I would consider to be consignment, most likely. What's going to be difficult there is finding a store that does consignment. Taylor's does not offer consignment, unfortunately. But if you do find a place that can offer consignment for you, what that's going to bring is a very close to what you would expect to sell to an individual. Of course, less whatever the agreed upon percentages to the store for the consignment, but not very much work to you, you're going straight to a market of people that are obviously interested in jewelry. They're coming in jewelry stores looking. So it as even though it's very rare to find a store that offers that, is going to be a great option if you do find one. Your next choice would be to find a jewelry store that would buy it for resale. And that would also include pawn stores. It sounds like you guys, I think, had maybe already talked to someone in pawn, so you probably actually know, honestly, more than I do. It's a totally different world, but I do know that generally pawn stores sell used jewelry, and in my opinion, as close as you can get to that in consumer. Certainly, a jewelry store potentially would have a higher end market, therefore would be able to offer you more money for higher end pieces, finer jewelry, that sort of thing. So big difference between those, of course.
And does tailors buy jewelry?
We do occasionally buy. Almost always we'll buy, for the precious metal, the liquidation. There's a small select few pieces that'll make it to a resale case that we have there too. So if it's in, exceptional quality, very good condition, it's potentially something that we could resell, and yeah, we'll make offers. So that's something that you could bring in and make you an offer for it if it is something that we can do one of the two things for. So.
I think I misheard. Did you say that pot stores sell jewelry?
Pawn shops.
Oh, pawn shops.
Yeah.
I thought you said pot stores.
They might. I haven't checked, but they could. But yeah, the pawn shops. Yeah. So another great outlet is online too, and it sounds like you've got someone that's going to talk a lot more in depth about selling online. I just want to, I guess, you might not have the same opinion that I think you do, but I remember growing up and online was not something that you really trusted. It was not a place certainly that you would want to sell fine things on, and that really has changed a lot over the years, especially because of COVID. There are a few businesses, at least that I am aware of, that have been around for quite some time, actually, that specialize in selling jewelry online, buying jewelry from individuals and reselling it, especially vintage pieces. So as strange, normally I wouldn't suggest online for jewelry, but it is becoming, especially for being as remote as we are up here, a great source for outletting some things like this. So, like I mentioned earlier, we don't do consignment at tailors, but we do occasionally buy outright. So you can stop by. It's kind of the same for the sorting service. We ask if you have a lot of items that you call ahead. Just give us a heads up that you're coming. We'll set up some time, make sure that me or one of the other jewelers can be there and help you. So that's something that we can help sort and still make offers for. What about costume jewelry? We kind of touched base on that. And what that is non-precious metals, not diamonds and gemstones, just they don't have that liquidation value so much, but they're still a nice piece. There is a surprising number of collectors out there for, signed, known artisan costume pieces, Bakelite being one of the first plastics invented. While it doesn't pull a huge amount, if you've got a good collection of it, I wouldn't say that it's totally valueless, but it's certainly a little different because you can't, like I said, just sell it, liquidate it. There's not an immediate buyer for it. But you can always try antique shops, collection areas, things like that. If you determine that, it's not really anything of any value at that point, but you don't want to just throw it away, playhouses, theater groups, schools that put on plays, they're always looking for props, even if it's not something they'll use this year. You never know. They might be able to use it. So it'd be something, at least we're not throwing things away. We're somehow reusing it, recycling it. So, as far as other places that buy jewelry, of course, jewelry stores and pawn shops. There's gold refiners here in town, which is a unique area. So if you have lots of gold nuggets, lots of you need a larger quantity, but you have literal ounces of gold. There would be a fee for refining it, but they would be another source for it. You could try coin shops if you have coins, and then of course venturing out, if you ever make it to Anchorage, if you fly to Seattle and you're comfortable taking some pieces, bigger cities equal bigger markets. You might have more opportunities outside. So. Any questions so far?
What about your family's jewelry store? Do you do any cooperative work on selling or interest in these things?
As far as the store in Illinois, it's not something we ventured into. It's kind of a unique market, and so we've never really traded. It would be very cool to kind of trade back and forth and kind of get different things in different markets. But yeah, it's not something we've ever looked into. But I'll have to think about that. Yeah.
Where in Illinois is it?
So it's southern Illinois, about an hour and a half from St. Louis, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right down at the south part of the state. So.
I have
Very
a
rural
question.
farming.
Judy Tolbert, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm wondering about something that has kind of a varying value. Like I have these little bars of silver.
Mhm.
And so does that just change with the month or the year or the value of those?
Yeah, so it's going to change fast, actually. It changes all the time.
Mhm.
One website that I use to check what's called the spot price of metals is called Kitco. So KITCO. And I'll put that in the chat so you guys can see it. And there's a lot of different ways you could just Google search what's silver price today. But that is actually what's setting the price of that. So if it's you might see on the bar if it says 1 ounce fine 9999. What that means is it's 1 ounce of silver, which generally that's how the spot price is calculated per ounce. And last I checked, it was around $20 an ounce, $19 an ounce. So that would be the price of it, minus a little bit of a refining fee, or there's usually a transaction fee of some sort when you sell it. But it's small. Just
Thank you.
of course.
Related to that, I've got another question. Alaska Airlines years ago gave away little tiny gold bars.
Okay. Yeah.
I have no idea what kind of gold, what concentration. Have you seen any of those? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen specifically the Alaskan ones, but generally anytime gold's formed in a little bar, and if it's in like a plastic case, what that is bullion. So it's usually pure gold, or as pure as it can go, and it's just a commodity. It's used to trade back and forth. It's a set amount of gold. So depending on what it says on there, it might be 1/10 of an ounce. It could be a 20th of an ounce. But you would take 1 ounce of gold divided by whatever fraction it is, and that would be more or less its value.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it for a while. I think they were just giving it away to folks who were. I've got 3 or 4 of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wondered if they were worth anything.
Yeah. Sure.
Interesting.
Looks like Betsy's. Oh, you're unmuted.
Yeah,
Perfect.
can you see it? I'm holding one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, and it says, gosh, in teeny tiny print, Credit Suisse.
Okay.
One, gosh, I think it's gram, fine
1
gold,
gram.
99.99.
Okay.
And then it's got like a serial number underneath.
Okay.
And then says something that I can't read. But it's in a little metal case, so it can be slipped out. I also have one that is free of the case.
Okay, sure.
But okay,
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so it's in grams. So there's 31 grams in an ounce. So it's 1/31 of an ounce. But
So we're
yeah,
not
you can
gonna-
turn it into a necklace like you've done. That's beautiful to wear. Yeah, that's great.
I have a question. Could you put the name of the online jewelry store that you were talking about in the chat?
Yeah, so I'll put them on here, and then at the end of this, they're going to send out some links too that I've got together for you guys that'll have all of this on there. But I'll just put the names on here for right now, and then you can follow the links or follow the names, whichever works for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have another question. If I've got some 14 karat gold jewelry,
Yeah.
is it worth more because any more than, I got it? Well, I've got some that was my grandparents. But if the price of gold is much higher now than it was when that was made, is it the appraisal based on the type of jewelry it is or the weight of the gold? I don't know much about it, but diamonds, it is weighted, or the type of diamond and the cut and everything. I mean, what all goes into an appraisal?
Sure. So if we were to perform an insurance appraisal on that item, we would refigure it at today's price. So yeah, when it was purchased, gold was at a significantly lower price than what it is today. So that value will change reflected of that. The stones may be of an older cut, but they can still be evaluated, and they still hold value in today's world too. So as far as figuring out, how much up it will have gone, there's not really any percentage or clear cut formula for that. It just needs to be refigured, and it's based on, what materials it is made out of. But yeah, certainly the idea is that almost always an item increases in value over time, especially long periods of time, just because the cost of everything has gone up at the very least. So
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Or I don't have too much more, but
Are antique pearls, large pearls, interested to people?
there is still a market for pearls. One strange thing that's happened with pearls specifically that really hasn't been affected by any other piece of jewelry is the production of pearls has definitely gotten easier. It has become a lot more clear as a science, and what we're seeing now, where usually saltwater pearls were the only kind of pearls that anyone would consider fine because they were the only round white variety available. They've totally been surpassed by freshwater pearls. They have really perfected the science down where you can get a beautiful, large, white, round freshwater pearl. And when you farm freshwater, you can get 40 pearls per oyster per harvest, where saltwater, at most, you can only get 2. So you can get so much more now in the same amount of time than you used to be able to. So for that reason, really fine, high quality Akoyas are still valuable, but they're a hard sell because they can be imitated essentially by their freshwater counterparts for a real fraction of the price.
How about set in gold?
The gold is
As a
gonna
bro- as a
definitely,
brooch.
that's gonna help with the value, definitely. And then then being nice matching pearls. It's hard to say without seeing it in person, but yeah, pearls they're a little different. Strands are probably the most have taken the most loss, but
Yeah, that
brooches and things
I
like
would think.
that. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or?
I have a question. Do you handle silver service
As far as repair goes or cleaning
or cleaning them and getting rid of them?
is it silverware like
Yeah,
gold? Uh-huh. If it
and I know
is,
the plate probably isn't worth much, but I do have some sterling, a lot of sterling,
yeah.
and a lot of antique pieces. And maybe you should go to an antique dealer. I don't know.
So yeah, the antique part of things, truly, honestly, it we don't get into that, so to speak.
Okay.
So if you suspect of any antique value, that's would be my first go. A piece will always hold more value. Scrapping and the metal content is always the lowest value you're going to get. It's the most basic. So anything you can get on top of that, anytime you can find that end user. So silver plate, I wouldn't be able to. I could help clean it, but of course it's a plate, so the more you clean on it, eventually it'll wear off. Solid silver, I can certainly make an offer for, and sterling silver. So yeah, bring it in. We can take a look and let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
I got on late. What address are you?
Taylor's Golden Stones. So we're in the Teddy Bear Plaza, right next to Brewster's, off the airport.
I'd like to say, this is Judy Tolbert. I loved hearing that you have that sorting service where you could just bring in a bunch of things that are all a mess together. That's what I have. I think, oh, someday, some winter day, I'm going to pull these all apart. But if you guys can do that, and how much do you charge for that?
So we charge it just based on time. Our shop time is $120 an hour. I would generally say 50 items. We can sort it in about half an hour or so, probably a little quicker.
Really?
So it goes pretty quick, just depending on how tangled it is and that sort of thing.
That's
But
thank you.
yeah, and certainly you can bring it in, and I'll eyeball it, and I'll quote you an estimated time before we even start too. So don't be afraid. There's no job too big.
What rates do you charge for appraisals?
It's $120 for a insurance appraisal. That's for the first item. Each additional item is $60 after that. And that's for insurance appraisals. We do offer like estate appraisals. So if you just want to kind of get like a fair market value for everything and more kind of in bulk, there's a little less information provided, but it will get you a price for everything. Generally, we do those by time as well. It's hard to say, but you'd probably be looking about, probably break down to be about like $5 or $10 an item, usually by the end of it.
Thanks.
Yep.
This is Betsy. I have another question. When you're doing an appraisal, are you able to say how much it was worth in 1990 or something like that?
You know, we do have access to like historical gold records, so I could look up what gold was back in 1990, but that would be the only historical way, you know, the only thing to look up. I mean, we could give general approximations, but I'm always surprised. You know, I remember even in like the early 2000s, you know, being able to do an engagement ring, a wedding band, and a men's ring for $1,000. And yeah, you know, when my dad was growing up, you could do that for $100. You know, so um, yeah, it's always surprising, but yeah, it's hard to say. Probably wouldn't be able to really pin it down exactly,
Okay.
but we could probably ballpark it and say.
Okay, let's go.
Does your store sell silver polish?
We do, yeah. So we have polishing cloths
Oh,
that will help, you know, rub the polish off. There's if you're looking for a like a liquid solution, we actually use a solution called Tarnex. I'll put that in the chat. And it will take all the tarnish off of silver pretty much instantly. It goes pretty quick. With jewelry, of course, we have to be careful. We don't generally want to put any stones in there, so it just need to be a silver piece. And then keep in mind that it takes all of the tarnish off of the whole piece. So, you know, a lot of Southwest jewelry has recessed areas that are supposed to be dark. If you put it in there, of course, it's going to take all of that away, and it might not look how you intended. But that works really good. And there's all sorts of pastes that work too. Most of the time, it's still just elbow grease and time. So with the cloths.
What about Alaska, the ivory and jade?
We generally we don't buy and sell ivory. We used to, but we've just kind of gotten out of the market. There's a store in town. I'll have to look them up. That I believe they kind of specialize in ivory and that sort of thing. That would be a good place to go to. Jade, we can take a look at and definitely help identify, or if it's something you're wanting to sell, potentially make an offer for. Generally, it's for jewelry pieces. We don't do a lot in sculptures and carvings, but if it's like a signed piece or something like that, we might be able to take a look at it and do something a little bit more in depth for you.
What about, what kind of gemstones are found in Alaska?
So we mine our own gemstones actually at Taylor's. We started out mining a stone called rutilated quartz. It's clear quartz that has kind of a copper or a golden needle-like inclusion running through it. We also treat some clear quartz to have a purple and green color change to it. We call it borealis quartz. And then we get epidote here, which is a dark green stone. It's found on Prince of Wales Isles. You can get feldspars. So we've got a little bit of yellow labradorite. You can get Nowitna River agates, which are a form of quartz as well. They're kind of an orangey yellow colored. It's an aggregate, so it's kind of got a super translucency to it. It's not opaque. It's not transparent. You can kind of see into it. It's got a nice kind of glow to it. So we mine all those here in Alaska and do our own gemstone cutting and setting as well.
Is that how Taylor's got started, sort of? I mean, calling it Taylor's Gem and Stones?
Yeah, they've always been interested in rocks. They started out, actually, the two brothers in the Four Corners area of Colorado, Cortez, Colorado. They had a silver smithing factory there with their dad, but they always wanted to go to Alaska actually for gold. They were definitely gold fever sufferers. So that's what got them started. They came up with their dad. They did their own gold panning. They started out with a dredge and got several ounces, and they've been kind of doing it ever since. At least living in Alaska. Once they started the jewelry store, then they really focused their sights on the gemstones. Where one of the customers that was in the store told them about these this area that they had known about, and that's where they went and checked it out with them, and then they bought the claim from them, and they've had it staked ever since. And used to go up every year. Haven't been up in a couple years now, but hoping to go in next month. Actually, we're going to try and take a trip.
Do you design jewelry and make jewelry?
I don't personally design it. I do some of the casting, so we, do everything in house from the computer aided design. That's what Lindsay at our store does, and then from that computer image, she'll actually print it with a 3D printer um, into this wax residue that we can then put in a flask, heat it up, pour molten gold into it, and actually make it into whatever piece of jewelry. So I do all the pouring and the heating part of things. So.
Sounds interesting. So you do a 3D printing of the mold itself, and then
Yeah, we just got one of those, so we're excited about it. It lets us do a lot of really great new creative things. So.
sounds like fun.
Yeah.
How can you tell the difference between silver plate and sterling silver?
Hopefully it's marked. So
Yeah.
generally it'll be stamped somewhere, whether it's one of the two. If it's not, then you can, usually you have to do a little bit of what's called a destructive test. So you'll need to, do a small scratch or kind of a carving into it to get either through that plating to whatever that base metal is. To which you might see, a coppery color or a brassy color, which would tell us, okay, it's not silver underneath, it's whatever plated, or potentially to get down to, solid silver, which generally, to be able to tell 100% sure, you then need to do an acid test on it, which you'd have to take it into a jewelry store or some sort. They'd be able to tell you. There's other ways of telling. It's kind of strange, but a lot of times by the feel, the smell, just the look of it, silver plate tarnishes in a different way than sterling silver does. There's not really any way to explain it other than see it 1,000 times, and yeah, always happy to help. You bring it in, and we can take a look and help identify it.
Is there a market here in town? And well, I'm assuming we've got definitely more than one jewelry store. So obviously people are buying jewelry.
Yeah.
Are there particular things that people are interested in, or things that you can't find, or that they're asking for that you don't have, that we might have in our attics or something?
Yeah, it always feels like, some days they come in and, yeah, you don't have what they want. You think I need to revamp the store. But, nothing in particular. Of course, there's always a need for gold nugget jewelry, jade pieces. There is a huge market still for local pieces, native pieces. So anything that has that true Alaskan spirit to it, we're being totally overwhelmed with tourists again, which is great for our state. So we're really fortunate for that. So they love to take a little piece of Alaska home, and a lot of people get a kick out of knowing that another Alaskan owned it, and they're going to get to cherish that and keep that memory going. So certainly, there is no wrong item, I'd say, but yeah, anything.
Yeah, if we enjoyed it, then it's somebody else out there must enjoy it too.
Definitely.
Eventually. Yeah.
Certainly. Right now, a lot of styles that are popular are like more minimal, very thin, simple. There's a big push still for vintage pieces like Art Deco and Art Nouveau. That really speaks to a lot of the younger generation. They like thinking of grandma's ring and great grandma's ring, and they want to kind of either recreate it, or they'll even seek out a true vintage piece that was made back in the Art Deco or Art Nouveau years. So.
So that should be a good message to everybody. All those old grandma rings that we all have, they might like those.
Certainly, yeah. You would be surprised at what is now popular again. Styles are a lot like a revolving door. They seem to always come right back around eventually. So you would think you might see something and say, no one, I wore this, and no one's ever gonna. But eventually, now we're seeing a huge resurge on big 80s era, large yellow gold wide pieces for whatever reason. It's just kind of the popular style right now. So, it just changes a lot. And keep in mind that gold is very malleable. It's meant to be recreated and reshaped. So, just because something isn't useful in its current state, maybe doesn't mean that it can't be either repaired, it can't be reworked, or revamped in some way to make it a more modern piece. We turn rings into necklaces, necklaces into rings. Anything really, to some extent, can be done to a piece. So don't let its current condition stop you from seeing what it could be.
Well, this is a little bit of a success story. I bought my wedding band at J. Vic Brown's in 1968 for $7.
Oh my goodness.
So it
I'm
lasted
glad you said that. I was going to ask, my ring cost $9 2 years before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I couldn't imagine. That's just incredible. Yeah.
Sylvia, have you had it appraised? Do you know how much it's worth now?
No, no. It's just a very thin one. I was a nurse at the time, and nurses were not allowed to wear diamonds, ornate big wedding bands, because we had to scrub our hands.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I thought I thought I was remembering it wrong, but I was sure I'd bought it for that we had bought it for $9. And if you say yours was $7, it makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There was definitely a long time where gold and all of that was not what it was today. That's for sure. So.
Well, and a hamburger in Kotzebue, everybody was saying we had to pay a whole $1 for a hamburger.
Wow.
Yeah, things have changed.
Yes, certainly.
And they're going to be changing more.
We're just going back to what it was in the 80s with the price of everything going up.
So as we go off the subject, do people have more questions? Or do we thank Patrick?
Both. No. Because if you have any more questions. And Patrick, you said you had a list of resources that you would let Joy have so that she could send them to us?
He already
Yeah, so
sent.
I sent Joy just all the questions and answers that I just kind of talked about. So that way, if anybody kind of missed something, hopefully I kind of touched base on it on there. And then at the bottom of that should be 3 links with a little bit of information about those companies. And then